Hello and welcome back everyone to episode 3 of our little quarantine talk show host where we talk about fantasy worlds. How are you today, Lily?
Doing just fine. I just laid out in the sun for like a half hour. It was quite nice. How are you, Clio?
Um, I'm a little jealous of that. I haven't been able to go outside because of all the pollen. I get sneezing
Oh
fits.
no.
Gotta take those vitamin D supplements to make up for that.
Yeah.
But today we got a big world here to talk about, and that is
The Game of
Elder
Thrones.
Scrolls. Yes.
Ooh.
How much do you know? How much have you experienced of the Elder Scrolls world, Lily?
I think we should get this out of the way first. My experience with Elder Scrolls is limited to the Brian David Gilbert video about which Skyrim book is the best, which it
Uh-huh.
was very enlightening and at the same time took away so many of my brain cells. And the other of my knowledge is the time when I downloaded Skyrim and spent like an hour and a half making a character that was like perfect.
Mhm.
Started playing the game. After about 5 minutes, it crashed and it didn't save the character that I had so loving crafted.
Oh no.
So I never played it.
That is definitely rage-inducing, I will admit.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm a very easily frustrated person.
I mean, I'd be frustrated about that as well. Spending a lot of time on the character creation, and then at the end of the day, it would upset you more with the fact that you never see your character's face while playing the game. So it didn't.
Yeah.
Well, I am going to try to summarize the series of
Every
events.
scroll.
I'm gonna try to summarize the history of this world, um, with a little bit more meat, on Skyrim and a little bit from Oblivion, which is the previous
Okay.
game. So let me just start off with that. The game started off, with the Elder Scrolls Arena game, and of course they release a bunch of mini sort of expansion universe sort of Elder Scrolls game and games in between, but these are the main like Elder Scrolls games. Um,
Mhm.
so the first one was Arena. Don't know much about that one. Um, it was a really very basic game, so there wasn't a lot of lore attached to it besides, a starting point of this sort
Yeah.
of imperial city. Um, Elder Scrolls 2 Daggerfall, the series gained a little bit more momentum. There was a little bit more customization, but still also it was a really basic linear. Even though it was an open world game, they railroaded you a lot within the game. Uh,
Okay.
and then the game that got it completely popular was Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, where you are plunged into the world of um, Vardenfell, and you have the choice of joining the three of the great houses, which is one of the many political systems of the Dark Elves. That's all that we will be talking about the Dark Elves today. Just that. um, then we go straight into Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, which is a game that I started on when I was like 8, and my dad was like extremely obsessed with it and played it all the time. But this is where we actually get the whole story coming into play here. So you're just a regular old prisoner, you know, you caught stealing sweet rolls and such, um, and
Quack.
whack. And
You know I can't get enough of those sweet rolls.
it's a meme in Skyrim, the sweet rolls. Um, but the prison, like the palace, whatnot, is being attacked by this group called the Mythic Dawn. Um, a group of assassins from the Mythic Dawn. They follow the teachings of the Daedric Prince, Dagon, who is the prince of like destruction and revolution. So, they're out to kill the
See?
king. Yes. Um and so while the king is like running through the prison system in attempt to go through this like secret back way and whatnot, he sees you and he's like, "All right, listen, you just come with me, for funsies as a treat."
As a treat.
As a treat. And so the game starts off, you're killing your way through the prison, killing off some rats and such, level 1 things. Um,
Classic.
Classic. But it seems as though the Mythic Dawn has caught up with you. And the Emperor, he looks at you and he's like, "Listen, I know I'm gonna die and I can't help it, but I need you to find my secret heir that's been living in like this sort of monastery and tell them that he's supposed to be the next imperial king, okay? And I need you
Oh
to
no.
help him out." And he gives you his amulet as proof. And then as soon as he does that, a Mythic Dawn assassin jumps out and kills the emperor. And and so that after that, you were sent off into the open world to do whatever you want. And eventually you do go out and you find his heir, Martin
Mhm.
Septim, which is, fun fact, voiced by Sean Bean.
Uh,
And and so instead of you being this was a unique sort of plot because instead of you being the chosen one and everything, your goal was to make him the chosen sort of emperor, make him a person of importance, right?
yeah.
Um, so
Just the messenger for the chosen one.
yeah, and he kind of like he accepts your aid and everything, and you go through adventures of making him emperor and such, and there's a moment of climax where he does become the emperor, and Dagon appears. There's Oblivion Crisis. So with the Mythic Dawn, he's opened a bunch of portals from his plane and releasing a bunch of demons amongst the world. So it's not a really good time.
Oh
Um,
no.
but in a moment of confrontation, um, the Emperor, Martin Septim, that you worked so hard to build up, he sacrifices himself to become this sort of dragon spirit, and
Oh my
he
god.
he kills Dagon. And now he saved the world, right? Um, and but this Septim dynasty that has lasted 400 years is done. So now this
Oh
world,
my.
yeah, so this world is slightly at a loss. Um,
Power void,
all
or
right,
vacuum,
yes.
vacuum.
Um, so enter from stage right the Thalmor, which are a group of pretentious elves that kind of look down on everybody else, especially the Imperials. Uh, the Imperials have also a religion based off of Talos, which was the founder of the empire and the first one of the Septim dynasty. And he was the only human to have ascended to godhood. And the Thalmor completely just hate this guy, right? And they want to ban Talos as a religion, and they just want to eliminate the imperial sort of government and take control. So, Septim Dynasty is over, the Thalmor appear. Um, and this goes into the zone between Oblivion and Skyrim. I know this is riveting. Um,
No, this is actually I've never liked history, but I'm having a lot of fun.
Okay, great, great. It kind of goes into sort of like the history books because then we enter a great war between what is now the Imperials and the Thalmor, because the Thalmor come in and they're like, "Listen, you're gonna submit to our sort of like rules and such, meaning that you're gonna ban Talos, we're gonna gain some territory, and we're gonna have some influence. And the Imperials were like, no, we have nationalism, we like our autonomy, and so this started the Great War with um, the Thalmor. Okay, but the war, it was really hard, and the current emperor at the time that was had stepped in, uh, it seemed as though they had like one major battle that they won, but it put them at such a loss that he decided that he would kind of concede a little bit to the Thalmor's wishes, kind of have a compromise, and they create a treaty. Although the Thalmor pretty much get everything that they wanted, and this treaty is a center point of all Elder Scrolls debate when it comes to what happens in Skyrim. This
Oh no.
this treaty is called let's see, the White Concordant. And so essentially, this eliminated a group within um, the imperial country called the Blades. Um, they're dedicated to like dragon hunting and such. Um, they banned the worship of Talos, and then they gave a portion of Hammerfell to Thalmor, to the Thalmor, which the people of Hammerfall were not happy about, and they fought the Thalmor a little bit. But a key component of this is that the Nords felt very betrayed by this. They had this sort of attitude. Uh, I like to think similar to Americans, where it's like, wow, you just kind of like dicked on our country's dignity, you know?
Yeah.
Um, we need to show up to Thalmor. We definitely have the strength to keep going. Why did he concede? So they were a little bit upset. So there was like a little bit of turmoil within Skyrim, this province of Skyrim. So enter Ulfric Stormcloak. Um, there's this,
I know this guy's name.
yep, from the cart. But before he gets to the cart and being executed, right? He kind
Mhm.
of leads this sort of group that has the same sentiment, like, okay, we're gonna take back um, our autonomy, fuck the Thalmor, you know? And so he decided that he was going to go take a um, kind of a stronghold, a little small city called Markarth, which was currently occupied by the natives of the region called the Reachmen. And, you know, imperial sort of people easily sort of kick out the natives and assert dominance in this Markarth stronghold. And the Reachmen that were kicked out were then called the Forsworn, and they fight in certain battles in your game of Skyrim. They make a reappearance. But anyways, in addition to taking that stronghold, he went to the king of Skyrim and challenged him to a duel and actually killed him. And
Oh.
and that sparked a that even further ingrained this sort of civil war between the Imperials and the Stormcloaks, named after Ulfric Stormcloak. Um,
Mhm.
but after that, after he killed the king, he was caught and he was sent to Helgen for execution, led by Imperial's head General Tullius, which we both see in the beginning of the Skyrim game. Um,
You're finally awake.
yes, iconic line. Hey, you are finally awake, and you look over, and it's Ulfric Stormcloak, and you're just, all the important people are here together. Um,
And then there's you.
and then there was a dragon. One of the,
Yes.
in my opinion, I love Skyrim's sort of story and plot, and it's kind of a meme now. But looking back at it, I remember racing with my saved like allowance money because we were like 12 or something like that, and
Mhm.
putting in Skyrim and just witnessing the graphics then and thinking it was the best thing of all time. I was like, this is
Yeah.
revolutionary. Yeah, it just changed my life. I was having a great time. Um, but the dragon that interrupts the execution, his name is Alduin, and again, with the series of events, you have a choice of either running off with the Imperials or one of the Stormcloaks, and then you make your merry way into the world of Skyrim. Um, the main
And
character,
from
what?
what I know, it's both of them are bad choices.
Yes. They're morally gray. You know, there's goods and bad sides to both.
Yeah.
And there's heated debate. I was looking into discussions online before going into this, and yeah, it was 50-50, really. It was, people were heated and they had their like textbooks out and they were like, "Well, if you remember, the Imperials did this." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing." Um but yet so the main character turns out to be able to absorb dragon souls when he kills them. Um and
Tight.
Tight, which gives him the power to shout the dragon language, which each have different magical effects when you shout them. And so you fill in this sort of prophecy where you're going to like save the world from the current rise in dragons, right? And so
Nice.
nice. So part of the prophecy is that you have to go up to the Greybeards, which are just a bunch of old men with gray beards isolated in the mountains who have dedicated their lives like studying the dragon language and shouts. Um, so you have to go there to train yourself as the Dragonborn. And
Tight.
tight. And they said, okay, it is time for you to meet our like master, our leader, the leader of the Greybeards. And you're like, oh shit, this is real. And
Hmm.
you climb up to the top of the mountain, and you see a fucking dragon. There he is.
Oh my god.
And his name is Parthenax, and he talks to you about the history of dragons and your role as the Dragonborn. And meanwhile, you also, in an attempt to also find a way to find Alduin, the first dragon that interrupted your execution.
Hmm.
Um, so your whole goal is to kill Alduin. You find remaining members of the Blades. So if you recall, one of the things that Thalmor demanded was that they would eliminate all the Blades.
Yes.
There are two alive
Oh
still.
my god.
And you go and you talk to them, and you go find a bunch of ancient Skyrim ruins, look at murals, mosaics, to try to figure out how to find Alduin and kill him, to end this sort of rise of bad dragons, right?
Yes.
Um, so first of all, Parthenax clears things up with you, saying that Alduin, the reason why he appeared when he did was because actually Alduin a bunch of years ago was also causing trouble again. And so the Nords at the time, they decided to solve the problem by using an Elder Scroll to send Alduin to the future.
What? What?
So you're just a dragon and you're just sieging this place, and
Casual. Yeah.
and the people are like, "Oh shit, what do we do?" And they're like, "Well, I mean, it won't be a problem when we're dead, so we might as well."
Not our problem. Goodbye.
So they people say, okay, a little bit more less literal version was they sent him into this time realm essentially, but that just means he was sent to a different time, which was the future.
Yeah.
Um, With the blades, you discover that you need to find a portal to go to Odaving and to go from there to Sovngarde, which is essentially the equivalent of Valhalla. Valhalla, sorry, um,
No,
in Viking culture. And in the end, you fight off Alduin with three like champions of history because you're essentially in their equivalent of heaven. And then you finish the game, you know?
right.
Tight. And of course, there's so much else going. That's just the main storyline, right? Um,
Yeah.
you as a main character can go through a bunch of stuff going throughout the game. Um,
Mhm.
the main thing, you usually go into each town. Each town has this sort of like quest line, side quest lines, sub side quest lines. You meet new characters. Main sort of concurrencies throughout the games is that there's usually a fighters guild, a mages guild, a thieves guild, and then there's the dark brotherhood. Um, and you go as a character. Every character is different as each person goes through the different storylines differently, making different choices. I picked one out to talk about later on in our discussion today. That's a little
Mhm.
bit. That was my favorite, but stepping aside from now that we understand a little bit about the main game storyline, ignoring all the rest of the world sort of world building, um, what would you say is your sort of like aesthetic impression from what I've said about the games?
Very much traditional fantasy. This is definitely one of the most iconic open world games,
Mhm.
like RPGs. Generally, um, what comes to mind immediately is like, people do like those videos and TikToks where they pretend that they are like, exactly what I'm talking
Yes,
about.
it's so many memes, so many memes.
They're so funny. So very much like a little bit like stilted, like looking back on it.
Mhm.
Um, but very much time as saying like the graphics are gorgeous, gorgeous. At one point, my friend Ryan had like a VR set and he had me like look at Skyrim within the VR set, and
Mhm.
I felt like I was actually like there on the side of a mountain. It was just like stunning. Like the graphics still hold up so, so well.
Right.
Um, so overall, stunning graphics, traditional fantasy world, um, very gray.
Yes. It is very gritty.
Yes, gritty, gritty, dark fantasy.
Gritty. And we've talked about another gritty dark fantasy world, which is The Witcher, and but it's different in a way, you know? It's more,
Mhm.
there's a lot more demons involved. Religion is a little bit added. I feel like it's a little bit more towards the Game of Thrones sort of gritty fantasy.
Yeah, definitely.
Um,
Especially with all the different like political situations, the because with the way we see some of that, but it's pretty straightforward, and we don't see a lot of like the history of it. We just really see what's happening during the story. And
mhm,
in Elder Scrolls, like there's an entire like historical canon that you have to think about.
right. It's so massive. It's so much lore. Like I one of my bullet points is so much lore, so much damn lore. We could have a session on like each sort of region of Tamriel. Um, Actually, one time, I was at the Moscow International Airport, and I have the College of Winterhold, which is the mage's college in Skyrim. I had a sticker of that on my laptop, and there was a fellow American behind me, and he
Mhm.
was like, where's the College of Winterhold? And I was like, Skyrim.
Oh,
He's like, where's that? Mm,
oh my God.
Tamriel. Never heard of it. Yeah.
He didn't get the memo.
Okay, didn't get the memo. Man, I sent my application to transfer to College of Winterhold during quarantine. I haven't received a response yet, but
Oh no.
I'm looking for the acceptance.
Yeah, I mean, I bet she'll get in. No
Oh,
worries.
oh yeah. Well, speaking of the School of Magic, the magic system is actually kind of lackluster and not really expanded into in the world. It's just your generic sort of like video game. Um,
Yeah, video game magic.
yeah, based off of your pool of magica.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the I mean the magic available to you is actually really expansive. And in Oblivion, they actually allow you to customize spells, which is something that I missed going into Skyrim.
What? I
Yeah,
love that.
yeah. With you can customize certain spells to do things in an instantaneous cast. Meanwhile, in Skyrim, you have to like just manually change through all the spells.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it's besides definitely the major highlight of this world, I would say, is the politics and how everyone interacts with one another.
Yeah, because
Um,
you've got all the different the D Diedrich princes.
yeah, Daedric princes.
Diedrich princes. You've got all the different houses. You just so much historical canon that has so much politics involved that it's just a lot of interactions possible.
Right. Um, I would also like to say a key feature of a lot of the strife and the politics in this world is racism. There is so much
Nice.
racism in this game. So much racism that there is racism within the races. Like there it's just it's insane. Um, Definitely one of the less enjoyable parts, but it um adds a breath of like reality into the game.
Yeah. You can't have gritty fantasy unless you have gritty fantasy like racism. That's it.
Right. 100%. Um, yeah, before we go on, did you have any sort of thoughts, questions?
Not really.
Okay.
Let's move on to what are your favorite parts
Um,
of Elder Scrolls? First of all, do you like Oblivion Skyrim better?
all right. I loved Oblivion. It has so much nostalgia for me, and it felt more real to me. Um, but I reinstalled the game several months ago, and I loaded back in, and I was like, man, this sucks. But I remember as a kid, like going through the stories and everything, because the story still has substance and such. And
Yeah.
I remember it was the scary world to me. You know, it is a terrifying fantasy world. And
Mhm.
I don't know why I still think about it at age 20 about how when you entered a city, I found that this one NPC would follow you until they got into like chat distance with you and then your character would lock with them and he would like demand money for drugs or something. It was something like
What?
that. But as a kid, I'm like I don't know 7 or 8. I see I okay the NPCs that's looking at like following you around. Not to be racist, is a Khajiit, and you know the Khajiit are the um, cat people. And so I was like, oh my god, this scary looking cat NPC is following me around town. Um, and I was terrified. And reinstalling the game and then replaying it, it just didn't have that same effect for me. Um,
Yeah.
and so in that case, my favorite game would be Oblivion because of the nostalgia factor. But currently, it is definitely Skyrim. It is up to date.
A little more playable.
A little bit more playable. It has so Oblivion was a popular game and everything, but Skyrim was transformed by the internet. People still play it today. I still watch videos of this one guy doing like these insane playthroughs of it. Like
Mhm.
I beat the Thieves Guild quest line without stealing or killing people, you know?
What?
And it's so funny how people have essentially broken the game, found the glitches, and just found ways of completely making memes out of it. That's why Skyrim is definitely my favorite.
I love it. What are your favorite parts of Skyrim? What are your favorite like story arcs? Your favorite quests?
Yeah. I have prepared to tell you my favorite storyline, but I as a meme, everyone goes some sort of stealth archer within the game. Um, Growing up, I thought I was the only one, but um, the quests that usually went along those lines was the Thieves Guild and the Dark Brotherhood, which were my two favorite sort of quest lines. Um, let's see. Before I go into the major Dark Brotherhood quest line, in general, the Markarth quest line is pretty fun. Um, the Solitude quest line. There's a few very fun quests where in Solitude you go into a realm with a Daedric prince and it's essentially a play on Alice in Wonderland, but it's really twisted Elder
Oh,
Scrolls style. That was a really fun quest. In Markarth, you witness a murder as soon as you walk into the city, and that whole quest line is solving that murder, and then you end up going to jail, and then you're having to break out of
what?
jail with the Forsworn, which I mentioned before. The natives, you try to like break out of jail with the Forsworn. That's a really cool quest line, if I'm
I
remembering
like that.
correctly. But I really wanted to go into the Dark Brotherhood quest line, which honestly I think is the best quest line of
Go ahead. I've heard a little bit about the Dark Brotherhood, but I can't remember for the life of me.
right.
What?
So going into the lore of the creation of the Dark Brotherhood, um, there was there was a Daedric prince, and he formed this sort of mini assassin thievery group called the Molag Tal. God, I'm butchering this. The Molag Tog, something along those lines. And they had a disagreement, a religious sort of disagreement between them within the organization, and so the group that got extracted from the Molag Tog was the Dark Brotherhood, and they worshipped not a Daedric prince, but an actual like sort of malevolent god called Sithis, which throughout the quest line you could say "Hail Sithis" the entire time. Um, and then one of the things that guards will like talk to you sometimes. One of the things that they'll say, Psst, I'm pretty sure you're in the Dark Brotherhood. Hail Sithis, am I right? This is like something that one of the voice lines that they tell you after you finish the Dark Brotherhood quest line. Um, but going into like becoming part of the quest, while in one of the cities in Skyrim, you hear rumors about a kid that is trying to do this ritual called the Black Sacrament. And they're like, kid's weird. He's nuts, you know. You should probably go. You should probably go check on him, you know. And so you go and you find him after he completes his Black Sacrament, sort of. Oh, what's the word? Ritual. um,
Mhm.
and which includes like using actual human body parts, and then you surround it with like candles. And this is like a 6-year-old orphan boy doing this.
Oh, what?
And you go over and he's like, "Oh my gosh, the Dark Brotherhood came. I can't believe it worked." And you're like, what?" And he's like, "Okay, listen. So this is what my job was." And he's like, "I need you to kill my the pretty much the orphan master. That's not the right word, but like the person that
I know.
took, yeah, the lady that took care of the orphanage at Riften where he previously lived in. Um, call her name is Grelod the Kind, and as you go visit her, she's not very kind at all. She's actually
No, I
like
wouldn't expect so. The 6-year-old wants you to murder her.
yeah, exactly. She's like calling everyone names. She's like assaulting them. So you squat down into your little sneak position and you assassinate Grelod the Kind, and you go back to the kid and you're like, "Listen, I did the job, right?" An alternative is actually I've seen a playthrough where someone um met the orphanage lady before meeting the kid and was like, "Wow, you're a jerk. I'm going to kill you." And then went to the kid, and then the kid's like, "I need you to kill her." And then you're like, I already killed her. And he's like, "Whoa, you guys are fast, you know?"
Oh my
Uh,
God.
but after this whole, like, do the job and re-interacting with the kid, you go to sleep, and you are kidnapped by the Dark Brotherhood.
No!
And you wake up and you find the leader of the Dark Brotherhood sitting on top of a shelf. You know, she's just very edgy and dark. And she's looking at you with one leg swinging in front of the bookshelf. And she's like, "Alright, you, took one of our jobs. And we don't really appreciate that. So, as repayment, you're gonna have to kill one of these 3 people, for funsies." And you look over and there's 3 individuals with like sacks over their heads, and you're supposed to kill one of them or kill all of them or kill Astrid. That's actually an option. um
Oh.
and which, by the way, she says well done after you kill her. um
Uh,
breaks my heart. But you have to kind of prove yourself in initiating yourself into the Dark Brotherhood that you're willing to kill without remorse or regret, just by randomly killing one of these 3 individuals that she's dragged into this shack that she's kidnapped you
oh.
in. And after that, you've been initiated into the Dark Brotherhood. Um, and one of the best parts of this is the Dark Brotherhood family. Um, there's one Argonian. The Argonians, by the way, are the lizard people.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
there's like an Argonian, a werewolf, um, a little kid that's a vampire. She's like 8, but she's like
Oh
a
my God.
thousand years old. Um, a red guarder from Hammerfall, who's essentially like a dad, and he gives you all of your assassination contracts. Um,
Aw.
a very old guy, and then there's Astrid, the leader. Um, so you get initiated in, you just kind of warming you up to the whole like atmosphere of being in the Dark Brotherhood. They tell you to um, do, do some assassination contracts. Um,
Mhm.
After you come back, a new character is introduced. That's also part of the Dark Brotherhood. His name is Cicero, and he has the most annoying voice of all time. But he's such a character. He's dressed in a jester's outfit, right?
Oh my God.
And he's always doing these sort of creepy gesture movements the whole time, and he has the high pitched sort of gesture voice. And his job is that he's the keeper, and that means, so the Dark Brotherhood, as I said, they worship Sithis. Sithis had a wife, and essentially, whenever people perform the Black Sacrament, they're begging for the Night Mother, which is Sithis' wife, to accept their offer for a contract to kill someone. And then And then they receive sort of like some sort of hidden message. The Night Mother doesn't speak to them, but they just know that they need to go out and kill this person. And so Cicero's job is to take care of the Night Mother's body. And so he carries around this coffin with her corpse in it, right?
Oh,
And so you're like, okay, this is fun. I love my big Dark Brotherhood family. We're all so quirky. Haha. um, Time goes by, and then Astrid is like, listen, I hear Cicero talking to someone in his room, and I think he's going to commit treason with us. So this is what I want you to do. And she tells you that she wants you to hide in the Night Mother's coffin in his room and listen to what Cicero is saying and figure out what, like, who he's being treasonous with.
oh my
So
god.
So again, 12 years old, terrifying. You go into the coffin with this mutilated corpse of the Night Mother, and you hear Cicero.
God.
You hear Cicero talking, and he's like, I think I'm warming up to the guys and everything, and you realize that he isn't talking to anybody. He's talking to the Night Mother, and you're like, shit. As he,
Yeah.
but as he's like speaking, all of a sudden the Night Mother's corpse starts talking to you and saying,
Oh.
she's like, oh my dear Cicero, it's a shame that even though he is so devoted to me, that he is not the one that is able to like hear my voice and whatnot. It is you, the listener, that can hear my voice, and you're just in the coffin
What?
like, uh, uh. and
Oh my god.
and she tells you to tell something to Cicero to prove that you're like not, BSing him and whatnot. But he opens up the coffin and you're like, and you go through this whole ordeal where it turns out that you're the listener, and the Night Mother essentially tells you that you need to go talk to this guy about a contract, and you're talking to Astrid, and Astrid is a little bit like, what? I'm the leader here. She doesn't tell you what to do even though she's the Night Mother. I'm gonna think about this, which is just the game's way of like pausing the storyline and making you go out and do assassination contracts. But still,
Mhm.
whole idea Astrid is very possessive about the family in Dark Brotherhood. Um, but you go out and you talk to the guy. Well, after you do the assassination things, Astrid's like, listen, the Night Mother demanded it, so you're gonna go out and see about what this contract is. So you find this guy in this hidden cavern. He's like a really rich noble, and he's like, "All right, I've got you your biggest job yet. I want you to kill the current emperor." And you're like,
Huh?
uh." And so you go back, and Astrid's like, "Oh hell yeah, we're gonna accept the contract. This is gonna put the Dark Brotherhood back on top." Um, And so she's like, but we're not going to do it straight away. We're going to kill other people leading up to the emperor so then it makes things a little bit easier. Um so your first your first like major contract leading up to this is to kill the emperor's cousin, a woman by the name Vittoria Vici, who is having a wedding, and Astrid is like, I want you to murder her at her wedding. Quote, it should be a lovely affair. You'll mingle with the guests, eat some cake, stab the bride. End of quote.
Oh my god.
And so after that, she tells you to kill the commander's son. Um, and then after that contract, it turns out that Cicero went absolutely apeshit back at base. He just went absolutely nuts. He was apparently mad that he's like, Astrid is a traitor. She's not really devoted to the Dark Brotherhood. She ends up like stabbing the Argonian of the group, and everyone's really upset. Um,
Oh no.
and so Astrid sends you out to go kill Cicero. And you go track him down, and he's like, listen, man, I'm following the orders of the Night Mother. Astrid is a traitor. You can kill me if you want, but, you should probably just not kill me and then tell her that you killed me. And that's up to the character what they want to do. Um,
Mhm.
doesn't really have an impact besides him appearing later. Um, but anyways, um, final assassination before the emperor is to kill. Let's see. Ah, yes, to kill the master chef. So then you poison the emperor. Um, so you would disguise yourself as the master chef in his stead, and then make his dish, and then poison the emperor. Um,
Whoa.
this goes into a little bit more like comical because after you do that and it's go time, you go out as the chef in your little chef outfit and you have an assistant chef and she's like, "Listen, I'm your biggest fan. The emperor has requested your famous potage, but everyone makes your famous potage a different way. It's such an honor to be here with you to make your version of the potage." And you're going in through it like, add some lettuce and sort of making this horrible stew.
Oh my
Um,
God.
you go and you give the emperor the stew and he eats it and dies, but surprise, it is a decoy emperor. They knew this was coming. Um,
No.
and so you get intercepted by the commander who's really pissed off that you killed his son, right? And he goes, "You've been betrayed within your family. Um, I was given the heads up about this plan in exchange for a deal. Now it's time for you to die." But of course, you get away, but you return to the base, home base, and it turns out that your home base is set up into flames, and you go in to try to
Oh
rescue
no.
your friends, your family. Um, you're only able to rescue two of them, which is your dad, Redguard, and the girl vampire.
Okay.
But you get caught up saving them and they escape, but you're caught in the flames and the Night Mother's still there and she's like, "Listen, come into my embrace, sweetie." And you live through the fire by closing yourself within the coffin with the Night Mother and she tells you to sleep.
What? What?
And then you wake up and there's your good old Redguard dad and your vampire best friend and they're like, "Well, we gotta start over." And but the Night Mother interrupts you and she's like, "Listen, Astrid has a contract for you." And you go into the other room, which is the remains of the base, and you find Astrid's mostly burnt corpse, but she's still alive
Um,
though. And but
uh,
she's like, "I did it. I performed the dark sacrament." And there's like candles all around her, and you're like, "Wait, what?" And she said, "I have a contract, and the Night Mother sent you here. I need you to kill me because I was the one that betrayed the Dark Brotherhood for the deal that the Imperials would leave us alone, which they apparently didn't, and now everything's my fault, so now kill me." So
damn.
you're like, "Shit, fam!" And so you end up killing Astrid and becoming the leader of the Dark Brotherhood, but you still have one job left to do. You gotta kill the Emperor.
Bum, bum.
Hell yeah. So you go out and you find the Emperor. And the thing is, the Emperor kind of is like chill about it. He's like, "Listen, I knew this was coming, and this is honestly destiny, but heed an old man's words." And he asks you to kill the guy that requested his assassination. And then you're like, "I'll think about it." And then you actually do kill the Emperor. And you go out,
Nice.
and you have the choice, of killing the Emperor's mm, person that wanted to kill him, and then you go back to the
Yes.
Dark Brotherhood with this like huge bounty that this guy was giving you because he was really rich. And the Dark Brotherhood's storyline after that is you give the money to a connection to help rebuild the organization, and that's the conclusion of the Dark Brotherhood questline. And it is honestly the best storyline in the game.
Wow. That's heavy.
That is I'm sorry. I hope you enjoyed the quick
No,
synopsis.
I did. Felt like I just lived through it.
Yes. I actually forgot a lot about it, so I watched a playthrough of it the other day, and I was writing everything down, and I was like reliving going through the storyline before. I had forgotten some points, and I was like, dude, this was better than I remembered it, you know?
That's awesome.
Yep. So that's the
Who is
best.
who's your favorite character out of the people in the Dark Brotherhood?
Um, I would have to say Babette, which is the girl vampire. She was really
Nice.
she, she made all the potions and everything for you.
Oh, cool.
She was a fun character. Um, yeah, I besides that Cicero was probably my favorite character.
Mhm.
Um, he was conflicted and was obsessed with the dead body.
God, I love that. What a king.
What a king! We stand Cicero. I'm
We stand Cicero.
As I'm
Um,
standing in the Night Mother's coffin listening to Cicero's voice, I'm quaking.
um, okay, so on that note, what are your least favorite parts or quest lines?
So I mentioned about the whole like Civil War thing, conflict going on in the story, but the
Hmm.
storyline is not that really fleshed out in Skyrim. Um, it's really lackluster, and the only pivotal point of that storyline is picking a side. And then after that, you like go out and you kill these repetitive quests where you go and you take over these strongholds. There's no like storyline or anything. It's just you playing war. Um b- beside and so that's like the worst part about Skyrim and my least favorite part. That part of the game was not at all fleshed out in any way.
Um, who were the most iconic characters in this game, in your opinion?
um There's a lot of meme characters that
Mhm.
only come to mind. I think the most pivotal story characters would be, Parthenax, the dragon who's your dad, your graybeard dad telling you all these things. Um, Iconic character. In terms of comical characters, there's one character that appears through a lot of the games, and his name is Mayik the Liar. And every time you talk to him, there's not much dialogue with him, but the whole gist of him is that he lies. So everything that so in Skyrim, you come up to him and he's like, there's no dragons about. It's not the end of the world." And then you're like,
Uh,
Um, there's also Nazim from Winterhold, which I'm sure you heard the famous quote I've written down. Do you get to the Cloud District very often? Oh, what am I saying? Of course you don't. There's there's a huge meme. Whenever you like walk past him, he says this all the time. And there's a meme where you quick save the game and you proceed to just murder Nazim in the street. Um,
oh my God.
Iconic character. Um, um, Besides that, there's oh man, with every group, I just don't remember their names. There's the group in Winterhold that's the group of werewolves. There's some few fun characters there. Thieves Guild have a few fun characters. It seems as though all of the fun characters are within all these guild quest lines, and the main quest lines are a little bit like meh. But
Yeah.
yeah,
From what you've told me, it seems that like the like side quests are not necessarily side quests, are a little richer
mm,
in like both characterization and just like emotion. Because the Dark Brotherhood quest line just sounds very like,
yeah,
oh, like oh my gosh.
yeah. It takes like
Where
4 hours to complete.
yeah, where the main quest line just seems kind of like you said, meh.
Meh. Yeah, it's just something to do, on the side. It's the real side quest. Well, all the
Yeah.
side quests are the main quest lines.
Mhm.
Um, I
Um,
I mentioned my in order to conclude with the best lines in the game, it seems as though there's a consistent consensus that the most favorite line is from Parthenax, your dragon Greybeard, says, "What is better, to be born good, or to overcome your evil nature through great effort?"
I love that. I've seen that one before.
It's like,
I like.
which one would you pick?
I mean, either to be good or to overcome your evil nature.
Yes.
Um, I mean, to overcome your evil nature, like it counts more, you know?
I would have
Like,
to agree. The being born good, it kind of insinuates an average sort of lifestyle. Not to say that's bad or anything, but to experience a sort of lifetime where you've experienced so many different things and you're able to come to a revelation and be good with a purpose.
mhm. Stuff that's like, I honestly, I saw Parasite the other day, and there was a line that was like, "Oh, she's such a nice lady," and it was like, "Oh, she's rich, she can afford to be nice,"
Yeah.
and the fact that when you're poor or when you are like depressed or when you are born evil, like you have to overcome an amount of like it counts more. If you're being it counts more, you know,
Mhm.
because you overcome certain obstacles to get to that point, and you're overcoming being miserable and still being nice to other people,
Right. It's a little
which I
bit
think is
more.
quite nice.
Say that again.
Which I think is quite nice.
Right. It adds a little bit more depth. A little bit more
Mhm.
dynamic. 100%.
Do you have any closing comments on the world of Elder Scrolls?
Um, I've been replaying Skyrim recently, and then after that I saw Jenna Marbles release a video about her showing her Elder Scrolls Online house, which by the way, Elder Scrolls released an MMO that's been really
Yeah,
popular.
I did hear about that.
Um, which adds a bunch more lore to the already existing lore, because now that they have like an expansion every few years that just adds in a lot more information, and they say it's canon, even though some fans are like, it's an MMO. Um, but after seeing Jenna Marble share her Elder Scrolls Online house, cultivated after 5 years of playing it, apparently, um,
Oh my God.
I played Elder Scrolls Online on my PC, but I downloaded it on my PS4 and I played it the other day, and I plan on continuing to play it. And it's just one of those worlds that, even though it's really gritty and dark, there's a lot of sarcastic humor in it, and it's such a vivid world, and I really like that about Elder Scrolls. It will always hold a place in my heart as something that I grew up with and am still experiencing. That's the best part.
I love that. Well, I think that was all for this one
Yes. Thank you, Lily, for listening to me talk for an hour.
about Elder Scrolls. I had a lot of fun.
Yes, I hope you did. I I try to make it a little bit more interesting, dynamic. Cut all the unnecessary parts.
Yeah,
Yes. Well,
it's all necessary, Cleo. What do you mean?
of course, it is all necessary. Fantasy is necessary.
Um, So next week, I believe we are doing Howl's Moving Castle.
Yes.
So we're going to be talking about both the books and movie. We have both read at least that's the first book. I read the first I, okay, not actually like a series, but I've read Howl's Moving Castle and I've read the companion novel Castle in the Air. I've not read House of the Ways.
I didn't know that there was more than just the main book, actually.
Yeah, it's fun.
All right. Well, I hope everyone will tune in next week, same time, possibly, to hear us talk about Howl's Moving Castle. And yeah, hope you guys are having a good time, a self-caring time, self-loving time during quarantine.
Right.
Bye.
Bye.